that if I wanted to work in any sort of banking, that he did not exist, and what didn't I understand?
Who are these exactly? Did you what is
Bank president. I mean, all the senior, the branch manager, the president, directors, we were all in one room. Dr. Reed was a favorite among all the tellers. I mean, he came in and he would often bring his dog, because we gave dog biscuits out to dogs in the so his dog Susie loved coming to the bank. He couldn't drive anywhere near the neighborhood even if he didn't want to make a transaction. We all loved Susie, and we invited him for our holiday parties and our open houses. We often collected toys. He could get us to do anything. Collect toys for the kids at the holidays, come serve at parties at the holidays, and suddenly, nothing. He didn't exist. We were to ask no questions. We were to never talk about it. And it would be instant, not only dismissal, but don't try to find a job at all. So after a while, and he had considerable fun in the bank. I mean, he had anywhere from $83,000 to $85,000 at any given time. Where did it go to?
They just disappear.
They're federal laws. I mean, money can't just disappear. Accounts, signature cards can't just disappear.
No credit card, no check account, no nothing.
Nothing. No loan payments. He never had a loan on the books. And I went all the way back. I mean, I had filed those papers. I knew all the readouts. Nothing at corporate. And that's when it kind of came to a head for me, because I went to corporate and had somebody check the what's known as fiche, where they do a micro picture of it. Nothing. He wasn't there. No Dr. Reed. So when I went back, I took on the bank. I mean, I let them know that I knew they were lying. And I'd be glad to come forward and say that. And I would go forward with a suit, because what they were doing was illegal. They were angry with me, I was angry with them, but there wasn't a lot of power playing, and suddenly they were forthcoming with part of Jonathan's money, about half of it. I was still angry, and I said I wouldn't settle for that. But he wanted anything. He had nothing to live on. And so I got a check for him, and very soon thereafter, the bank and I parted ways. And it was very obvious to me that I had stepped on some toes, and I became very concerned for my own security, physical security.
Did they cause problems to you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, they called my home and told me to shut up. They told me I would never work again. I was terribly afraid. I mean, if they wiped out his existence at the bank, and they wiped out his existence at his work, if he could disappear, I could disappear. So I left the bank.
Why you weren't able to give the program before?
I'm afraid. I know Gary's gone. I don't know where Gary is. People that Jonathan worked with, that he spoke of, when I pick up the paper, they're dead. So, yeah, I'm afraid. There's no hesitance in supporting Jonathan or believing Jonathan. That 110%.
Okay, keep going. We're going to roll to the second video. This is an interview with Betty, who's a former nurse of Dr. Reed. She worked with him for 5 years at the University of Washington.
My name is Betty.
In the same department.
I worked with Dr. Reed at one point in time back in 1996. I worked with him for about 5 years at the University of Washington Medical Center. He was very professional, very concerned about the children that we had worked with. Ran everything in the office by the book. It was in October of 1996. Jonathan came into the office, and you could clearly see that something had happened to Jonathan. And within about a week, Jonathan no longer existed. His office was cleaned out. The nurses on his staff were reassigned to other positions in the hospital, and were told as far as we were concerned that Dr. Jonathan Reed did not exist. He never worked at the University of Washington Medical Center, and it would be wise for us to adhere to that thought as well, otherwise we would no longer be working.
Who needs it?
The director of the child psychology unit that we were working with, and nothing was ever discussed. I mean, when his office was cleaned out, it was cleaned out. And there were no questions asked, no questions answered, and that's just the way it was. And it was like he was just completely and totally railroaded right out of the hospital. And the project that we were working on was closed down. The patients were sent to other doctors in the hospital.
Were you able to speak with the other colleagues there at the hospital to talk about Jonathan Reed's case?
We were all advised not to speak about Dr. Reed, not to speak about him, not to speak, to anybody within the hospital, outside the hospital, whatever. Management had decided that Dr. Reed did not exist, and they were very clear that as far as we were concerned and as far as our job security was concerned, we'd never heard of it.
In any moment you were doubtful about the Jonathan Smith?
If there's something to be doubted, then why did all this happen? I mean, why was he railroaded out of his career? Why was everything shut down? Why was everybody told, he doesn't exist? And, why were we told that, that we never knew of him? And to think that somebody could experience something like that and be completely and totally wiped away from, from his existence. And I just sat back in just total bewilderment as to how it could possibly happen. And happened to Jonathan, knowing who he was and his career, how professional he was at it, and how, serious he was about, what it was he was doing and the research he was doing, the children he was working with. And it's like, everything about Jonathan was completely and totally invalidated.
What do you think right now when these almost 6 years have happened, and now you are aware of everything, or almost everything, I think, about your friend? Is it necessary to help him? Is it necessary to speak about? Is it necessary to protect him? What do you think?
In one respect, I'm almost afraid, because I know that there have been people that have supported Jonathan and have been hurt in the past. And so, it kind of makes me afraid. I came with a certain amount of apprehension, if you will. But I also believe in Jonathan. And I know that what he experienced, he experienced.
Okay, you can stop that. How are we doing on time? Thank you. Now that's pretty compelling evidence, I think. These are people that we know. I was at these interviews. I know who these people were. Daniel Munoz, who's Jaime Maussan's right-hand man, was present for the interviews. Dan McAvoy was present for these interviews. We all know who these people are, and we block their faces because we want to protect their identities. We don't want their lives to be dragged into this mess that we've all dragged ourselves into. This didn't happen to them, and they haven't volunteered to make themselves public in this regard. I have, and I don't mind that. Dr. Reed was kind of dragged into it unwittingly, and Robert Wraith has volunteered, Dan McAvoy has volunteered. We don't mind showing our faces, but other people don't want to be part of this necessarily. They're willing to support him and testify for him, but privately. And that's why we hid their faces, so if anybody is asking. But there are people, including myself, who know these people are. And they are exactly who they represented themselves to be. Now, you'd have to ask yourself, are the people that are debunking this case, are they saying that he has now hired all these people to lie for him? I mean, I don't know about you, but I'd have a real tough time convincing my friends to lie for me like this, especially on video. And tell them, yeah, I'm going to take it around the country and the world. I'm probably going to show it on a couple shows. You don't mind lying for me, do you? No problem. They'd sign right up for that. Don't you think all your friends would do that? I don't think so. Let's go back to the PC projector real quick. And I'm going to show a couple more things. I asked for time. How much time we got left? There was supposed to be on the monitor telling me. How much? Okay, good, good. I'm gonna go over a couple more things, and then I'm gonna turn it over to Dan McAvoy, and we've got a surprise for everybody.